One of my most important intentions for 2025 is to tackle my TBR. It is out of control. I actually don't know the total number that I have on my physical TBR at the moment, but it's well over 100, less than 200, something in between. And I haven't added all of the books that I've got from my book advent calendar yet either. So it's continuing to explode. So 2025 is going to be the year of taming my TBR. So now feels like a really good time to do the reluctant TBR tag. I saw Cass Krug do this a little while ago now and absolutely loved her video and really loved the premise. The original tag was created by Chloe Frizzle. I'll link both of their channels in the description, but now feels like the right time to really confront and face up to my TBR. So all of the prompts in this tag begin with, what is a book that you want to read but something. So the first prompt is, what is a book that you want to read but it was a soft DNF? And for that I'm going to say Sylvia by Maitreyi Karnor. It's a book that I started reading from NetGalley and I was really into it to start off with, but it's got quite a long first chapter and then it kind of goes to a part 2. And part 2 seems to have gone in a completely different direction with completely different characters, and I just felt a bit lost and haven't really felt compelled to pick it up. So I kind of felt like I was getting, it was a bit of a slow burn to start, but I was starting to get invested in the characters. There's a daughter who accidentally gets back in touch with an estranged uncle. He has befriended a neighbour's kind of young son, and the niece and the son kind of strike up a bit of a relationship. The relationship between the two of them and the older gentleman is really lovely, and I was kind of like getting into that. And then we hit part 2 and it was different characters and we were kind of like just plopped into a situation I knew nothing about. And it's not compelled me to pick it up again. But for those of you who know me know that I am pathologically unable to DNF a book, so I will likely finish it, and probably before the end of the year, just to make sure that my reading year has been nice and neat. So I hope that I will get into the second part and enjoy that as much as I have the first. But that's going to be my answer. That's Sylvia by Maitreyi Karnor. Okay, the next question is a book that you want to read, but you've read another book by that author and didn't like it. So my answer to that is going to be Dear Centurion by Akwaeke Emezi. I read You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi and I wasn't into that. But I'm really confident that I will like this. It's a very different book. I'm not a huge romance reader and I did enjoy their writing style. I think it was just the content that wasn't for me, and this is much more up my street. It's a memoir, obviously, about their life, and it's described as powerful, raw unfolding of identity, which sounds absolutely perfect for me. I'm really confident that I will like this despite not having enjoyed You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. Okay, next question is a book that you would like to read but it's brand new and you don't know when you're going to get to it. So I have chosen The Significance of Swans by Rhiannon Lewis. Rhiannon is a Welsh author from Abergavenny, which is just up the road from me, and this is a dystopian novel with a female protagonist, which sounds really super. So it's described as a rare, refreshingly female-focused dystopian thriller centred on an ordinary wife and mother surviving in a post-apocalyptic world. I saw Rhiannon speak about this book at a book event in Waterstones in Abergavenny and it sounds really up my street, so I'm really looking forward to reading it. It's also, in the blurb, it also says Cormac McCarthy's The Road, written with a woman's sensitivity and interiority. So I'm hoping at some point in 2025 to do a reading vlog where I do a dystopia off and read the two books together. If the camera angle keeps changing and the lighting keeps changing, it's because I'm having a bit of a mare with my camera battery. So I'm really sorry about that, but the show must go on. Okay, the next prompt is... speaking of which, so a book that's on your TBR that you'd like to read but the cover is really ugly. I'm going for The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I've heard only good things about this. I think it's a father-son relationship in a post-apocalyptic world. So I am hoping to read these two together, given that this is supposed to be a feminine version of Cormac McCarthy's The Road. I would like to read them together, but what an awful cover. I mean, how boring can you get? I mean, I like grey, but really? So yes, this is my answer to a book that is on my TBR and I'd like to read, but the cover is super ugly. Okay, a book that's a classic and might be a good read for me, but I'm not that interested, is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. My grandmother read this and we quite often swap books, which is fine and lovely, but when it's like this, look how chunky that is. That's a huge commitment. I'm just not hugely interested. I have heard mixed things about it. I think it's a really great adventure story, but also that it drags on like no shit. I don't even know how many pages this is. Hold please. Note. Okay, so the book is 1,243 pages long, which is about 1,000 pages too long for me. So I'm not sure that I will be getting to this, but it sits hopefully on my shelf nonetheless. Sticking with a theme, a book that I'd like to read, but it's humongous and intimidating, is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. I really like the sound of this one, and I'm so intrigued by the fact that there are some really beautiful illustrations kind of peppered through the pages too, but it's a chunky book and it's not often that I'm in the mood for a really chunky read. So in the early 1900s, a Brookhant student, Flo and Clara, fell madly in love, brought together by their obsession for a scandalous memoir. A few months later, they were found dead in the woods after a horrific wasp attack, the book lying next to their intertwined bodies. 3 more grisly deaths followed before the school was forced to close. Now the school's doors are open once more, but as the crew of glamorous young actresses assemble to start filming, past and present begin to blur, and soon it's impossible to tell quite where the curse ends and Hollywood begins. I think it sounds so fun, but she's very chunky. Okay, a book that you feel that you need to read because of the hype, but you're not sure how excited you are about it. I've gone for The Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe. So this is about a character who's living a really bougie Wall Street life. He's got like a Park Street apartment and a fancy wife and a fancy mistress, and he experiences this fall from grace after a hit and run accident. Again, it's a really chunky book and I struggle to see how exciting you can make all of that in all of these many pages, but I hear really good things about it. It's one that I feel like Elizabeth Day often recommends as one of her favourite books, and that's probably where I picked it up from in the first place. I'm sort of curious about it, otherwise I wouldn't have bothered picking it up at all, but also it's a big commitment for a book that you're not really confident you're going to love, isn't it? A book that I need to be in a specific mood to enjoy, I've picked Ice Cream for Breakfast by Laura Jane Williams. I still have a bit of a hangover of self-help books on my TBR from my many years of buying and reading self-help and mental health and well-being books. And some I've unhauled, some I've got around to reading, and some I'm still interested in, and this is being one of them. The subtitle is How Rediscovering Your Inner Child Can Make You Calmer, Happier and Solve Your Bullshit Adult Problems. I suspect it was that led me to think actually this could still be quite good. I do still enjoy a bit of self-help now and again, but I do definitely need to be in the right mood for it. A book that you want to read but you're on the fence about continuing the series is the last in the seasonal quartet by Ali Smith. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I just haven't fallen in love with Ali Smith's writing the same way as I see other people doing, and I really feel the most enormous sense of FOMO because I feel like I really should love what she does, and I listen to other people describe her books and describe these in particular, and I think yes, no, that's for me, and then I read them and it wasn't for me. I did saying that, I did enjoy Winter. That was my favourite of the three, and I did really enjoy my reading experience of that. Somehow I kind of got Winter in a way that I didn't really get Spring and Autumn. So I still have Summer to go, and I'm putting it off. I'm a completionist, so of course I want to complete the set. And in a really vain way, how lovely will the four of those look on my shelf? But I'm, you know, I've only enjoyed 1 out of 3 so far. So that's, yeah, I'm exactly that, on the fence about whether to read Summer by Ali Smith. A book that you want to read but it's been on your TBR for a very long time is Someone Like You by Roald Dahl. This is a short story collection by Roald Dahl. I picked this up at Hay Festival a long time ago, probably 2018, 2019 perhaps. I really like Roald Dahl's writing. I've read some of his short stories in other collections, like a crime collection maybe, and he writes really, really brilliantly, and I know that I will enjoy these. I'm not a huge short story collection fan, and yeah, I just haven't felt rushed to kind of pick this up, but it is now one of the oldest books on my TBR, so maybe 2025 will be the year. A book on your TBR that you want to read but the genre is outside your comfort zone. I've picked Early Morning Riser by Catherine Heine off my shelves. So this, I think, is a romance, and I don't love romance per se. It's about a lady called Jane who falls in love with Duncan. My love is a Duncan. So maybe that's something that kind of like won me over to it. I don't know. I feel like she goes back to a small town, there's dating, I don't know, I don't remember. But what I do remember is Emma from Drinking by My Shelf absolutely raving about this the year that she read it, and so much so I was completely sold and absolutely had to have it. And I've got a feeling she compared it to Still Life by Sarah Winman. It was either that she compared it to Still Life by Sarah Winman, or she was kind of doing it might have been that she was doing like a World Cup of books, and she was like pitting the books that she'd read that year against each other, and it came down to this one and Still Life, and this one won. I forget. But anyway, she really sold me on this, despite the fact that it's a genre that's outside my comfort zone. But it is described as warm, witty and touching and frequently hilarious. So if that's true, and that's David Nicholls, we do love David Nicholls. So if that's true, if it is funny, oh, it's also blurred by Marianne Keyes. See, all of this is kind of leaning into it. This could work for me, despite the fact that it's a romance. So I'm hopeful. So despite being totally won over by Emma's descriptions, I am still a little bit anxious to pick it up, given that it's a romance. The next question is this: despite owning it, you'll likely never read it. This can include unhauled books and library loans. So despite owning it, you'll likely never read it. I am going to say Surrender by Bono. So the story behind this is Bono released this book and did an event at, it wasn't at Hay, Cheltenham Literature Festival. My partner's a really big U2 fan, and so I got us tickets to go because I thought, well, that'd be interesting just to see Bono interviewed. I know it's not, you know, it's not the same as a gig, but I thought that would be pretty cool. So we turn up for this event, and it's in, you know, a standard kind of like tent for a book event like that, a bit like Hay Festival. Cheltenham's smaller than that, but a similar sort of setup. And we've got our seats, and it's all set up for Bono to sing, and he performed 4 songs, just himself. Obviously the band wasn't there, but he performed 4 of U2 songs, like right there, and then did the interview. But it completely blew my mind. I really wasn't expecting that at all. So it was quite a small, intimate venue to see Bono, which was wild. So the actual event was so cool, so cool. But the tickets came with a book each, so we ended up with 2. One I've given away and the other we've kept on our shelf. I'm not particularly interested in reading this, but it's a happy memory because that was a really, really cool day. Okay, a book that you would like to read but it's out of obligation. So that can be out of obligation to a book club or a friend. And the book that I have for this is The Rare and the Beautiful by Cressida Connolly. This has been lent to me by my father-in-law. I forget what we were even talking about, and he plucked it off the shelf and was like, here, have a read of this. And I have not, but I really should. It's about the Garman sisters. So they were kind of socialites with the likes of Lucian Freud, Laurie Lee, Roy Campbell, and so they're described as muses because I think they had sort of relationships with various different kind of big minds of the time. It says, through a family saga that encompasses bisexuality, unfaithfulness and illegitimate children, Cressida Connolly has traced a golden filament of romance and drama that illuminates the British art world with a uniquely human light. That actually sounds really nice. I really should get to it. I guess it's that kind of feeling of having something picked for you. That's really childish. Yes, Carrie, just read the damn book. Okay, a book that you would like to read but some negative reviews have made you less excited about it, and for me that's Wayward by Amelia Hart. As you can see, I have this in hardback, so I got this pretty early on when it came out. I was really interested. It's about 3 or 4 women, I think. It's set over different time periods. Yeah. 1619, 1942 and 2019, and it's witchy. It all sounds really super. It was, when I've heard it described, it was making me think of The Basrock by Evie Wyld, which I really loved. But I've also seen some really mixed reviews which have kind of reduced my expectations, which in the grand scheme of things is probably a good thing, right? If your expectations are lowered, if a book's not massively hyped, you're more likely to enjoy it for what it is. So I am still looking forward to read this, but it's definitely one that popped into my mind when I saw that prompt about a book that you're slightly less excited about because of some of the negative reviews you've seen. Okay, and the last prompt is a book that you would like to read but it hasn't come out yet, and I'm going to choose The Lady Upstairs by Jessie Elland. I actually have access to this on NetGalley, so I could be reading it, but it doesn't come out until May. But I think it sounds really smashing. Let me tell you what it's about. Scullery drudge Anne longs to become a lady's maid. Anne can't quite remember how or when she arrived at the grand Ropener Hall, but she loathes spending her days toiling in the dank kitchen. When a chance meeting with Ropener's Lady Charlotte leads to the opportunity to become her personal maid, Anne is convinced she has finally escaped her own version of hell. But has she? As Anne's new life above stairs takes a sinister twist, will it turn out the terrors lurking up there are worse than the devils she knows below? And it's described as a dark and twisted tale of ambition and desire. I think it sounds smashing. So that's it. That's my reluctant TBR tag, and we're not going to be reluctant TBRers next year, are we, folks? We are going to be keen beans reading through all of these books on our shelves, because my TBR shelf is literally overflowing. I have no more room. There is no more room for new books. Must read. Must read. Although I was just telling Duncan what I was doing when I was pulling books off the shelf. He was like, well, we need another bookcase then. This is why I love you. The answer is not fewer books, the answer is bigger bookshelves. On that happy note, I will see you again in the next video. So the first of those is, what was a book that you want to read but fucking battery now?